Hey, there it is. You got to refresh on your coffee.
Oh no, I need to though. No, I'm all out. I'm kidding. I'm joking. This is my last cup.
It's probably my my third cup.
How many cups you drink a day?
I'm probably a pot.
Oh shit. Yeah, I'm like 3 cups a day and that's it. I can't have any more. I start getting the shakes and shit.
Well, throughout the day, like, do not follow what I do with caffeine. Throughout the day, I probably have like 12 to 1600 milligrams of caffeine a day.
Damn.
If I'm counting energy drinks and coffee.
What do you drink for energy drinks? Those NOS? You still drink those?
NOS and Ghosted and some of the Celsiuses are good.
Oh, okay. I've never had those. I was in junior high. I had this energy drink dealer, right? Because they didn't sell them at school, right? My boy, he'd be like, "Look, I'll give you a Rockstar for, fucking $3." I'm like, "Shit, take my money, bro. Let me get a Rockstar." And that was my first time ever having a Rockstar. And then I migrated over to Monsters for a while, but I like the flavor. You know what I'm saying? The flavor of the Rockstar.
To me, the original Monster is probably the original Monster and the original Red Bull, the two worst tasting energy drinks around. But that's my opinion.
That was what I drank too. I tried the like fruity ones in the like how like Monster's got a whole bunch of spin-offs, like different flavors and whatnot. I've tried them. The white can is pretty good. I think it's like the sugarless can or some shit. That one's not bad. But for the most part, yeah, I don't know. I like I'm a simple man. I like original flavors.
Yeah, I like the Monster Rehabs, the tea ones.
Oh, I've never had those.
Those are pretty good. They're not carbonated. It's just a highly caffeinated tea, pretty much. Those are good. The C4, I think I've tried a C4 before.
I've never even heard of that. You ever had Balls?
Mm-hmm. That's an old one.
Miss B, she used to drink Balls. I tried it back in high school. I never got into it.
It's a super clean taste. Like if you're not used to like no sugar drinks that have, let's put it this way, if you don't like sparkling waters, you won't like Balls, because Balls has that light sparkling water taste with a bunch of caffeine.
Yeah.
So like if you don't like LaCroix or bubblies or whatever, you probably won't like Balls.
What was that? Like in Safeway, they got those flavored waters, those flavored carbonated waters. I fuck with those, but I don't know if those are like flavored waters or if they're like carbonated syrup.
Yeah, it's hard to, like, the ones that Pepsi put out and like LaCroix, like they're pretty much copying LaCroix because LaCroix blew up because everybody wanted to stop drinking soda, but they still wanted carbonated beverages.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much the same thing as LaCroix. It's just Pepsi's version. So it's water with flavor.
Oh shit! I remember Pepsi Blue.
Mm-hmm.
That was my shit. They get rid of all the good shit.
I like some carbonated waters. Some of them aren't bad.
I get down. There's a couple of them that have some pretty good flavors to them. But then, like, you ever had a carbonated drink that's got too much carbonation in it? Feels like you're just drinking bubbles. I hate those. I hate those.
And most of the time, that's from nitrous infused. Yo, Doc Holliday.
Oh.
You got like carbon dioxide, and then you also have like nitrous infused beverages.
Oh. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah,
And
you think you're drinking them?
you get an entirely different mouthfeel with those.
Yeah, yeah. Because they never tell you. It's like you just go to drink it and you think it's a regular drink. Next thing you know, you got all these fucking bubbles in your nose and shit.
Kind of like whippets, yeah. Same stuff. Nitrogen
Shit.
infused, nitrous. It's all, they're very close. And they're just slightly changed in the form that they're in, basically. A gas, a liquid.
Shit. Yo, so I've heard of people using like bubbly, like like fizzy water, carbonated water for their plants. Is
Hmm.
there any benefit to that?
A slight benefit. The carbon dioxide will effectively will, like when you pour it into your medium, all the bubbles in the carbon dioxide will pop on the surface of the soil, and all the carbon dioxide will rise up a little bit, and your plant will eat off of it.
Oh,
Now, like a lot of these hacks are more for the people that grow with salt nutrients because they don't have the huge microbiome in the soil like living soil people have. So like at all times, your soil and my soil are creating CO2 at all times
okay.
and
Natural, natural.
naturally through the process of decomposition and the elements in our soils. CO2 is created constantly by the microorganisms that are decomposing it, and those that CO2 rises up and it feeds the plants. This is why you don't have to supplement CO2 to outdoor plants.
It's just naturally out there.
It's out there. It's being created all the time, used all the time, and put back into the ground all the time. And that's the huge thing about the carbon sequestration is uh it like plants will take carbon dioxide from the air and put it back in the ground. And the only reason it gets put back in the ground is if that plant is able to die and decompose right where it grew. If you take it and throw it in a pile, like you're doing a compost pile, and turn that pile every 3 days, you are actively off gassing the carbon back into the air again.
Okay. So like me and Craze were getting into some conspiracies and the whole cow crap and compost came up. You know, the whole conspiracy about that, how the cows are I haven't looked too much into it, but like there's a theory that the cows put
People
off.
are concerned with the methane that the cows put off,
Yeah.
but the fact of the matter is uh, they do put off methane in factory farms situations. It can be a bad thing, 100%. When you got 1,000 cows in a fucking 500 square foot barn that you just have them side by side and they're like this and shit, it's a problem.
Yeah.
But if you're doing actually like free range cattle that they, eat grass in a certain area, you move the entire range to another area in your field, they eat that and they poo in different areas all around. It's actually beneficial and sequesters carbon, and there isn't much methane output. The huge part of the methane output is what the quality of the feed the farmer is feeding the cow and how they're keeping that cow. So
So
there are
yeah,
issues with it if you're doing it the traditional commercial factory farm style. 100% there's issues with it, but if you do it the old school way that people have been doing it for thousands and thousands of years, where you keep a couple cattle around and you move them and you actually manage your resources, it's actually not bad for the environment and actually helps the soil and plants and the whole system. And
yeah.
that's kind of the problem with a lot of the people trying to attack different ways of thinking about climate change or environmental change is that it's not one thing. It's not the oil companies burning oil. It's not just them. It's also the plastic companies making plastics. It's also it's also that. It's also the farmers. I like, as much as I want to support farmers and I want to give them the biggest props ever. You have to. A lot of these farmers have been taught over years and years and years by big corporations like John Deere and big nutrient corporations that you need these salt nutrients in order to be successful and sustainable as a farm. You need this $500,000 John Deere tractor that runs off of proprietary software that you won't ever be able to fix, and will have to pay somebody an exorbitant amount of money to come out and fix your tractor that you paid $500,000 for.
So you have looked into that.
Oh, I know all about that.
Okay, so I was about to bring that up too, because farmers, I feel like they get dealt the shit end of the stick. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like growing weed, right? You got these big corporations that are pushing these really awesome plants inside their grows, but they got financial backers behind them that'll help them get these lights and these HVAC systems and all this put in their facilities. And then the little guy, the little home grower, is like, well, if I want to grow weed like that, I need that, right? It's kind of like the same thing with the farmers,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And it's a big marketing ploy. It is, honestly. We've never needed this stuff, and we'll never need this stuff to grow food and medicine.
No. I don't know if any of y'all caught that. There's a clip where they
shout
did
out Leo for the raid.
Hey, where they did there was these farmers, they buy these multi-million-dollar pieces of vehicles or piece of equipment, right? And they can't repair them. Right? It's all at the discretion of the dealer. Well, the dealer is, X amount of miles away, and they got to bring their equipment to the dealer. The dealer won't come out to them, right? And they won't fix it on site. Basically, these farmers have this $500,000 piece of equipment that has a paperweight. I can't do anything with it. I don't know about you, but me, if you're not going to help me fix it, I'm going to go look in other places to get it fixed. And I'm going to have to do it on my own. And that's what these farmers are doing.
Hey, shout out Very Fairy.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's honest. It's a huge thing. There's a lot of lobbyists that were fighting against the right to repair. And this is actually kind of a big deal right now in the past couple of years. And it not only has to do with farmers being able to fix their own equipment, it also has to do with Apple being unfriendly to independent repair shops. Many companies, One Wheel, the people that make the One Wheel that you can ride around on, they're not very friendly to independent repair shops either. They'll make sure that if you replace a battery in one of their One Wheels and it's not directly from them and you didn't get the direct key from them, it's just not going to work at all, even though it's a completely safe battery that you took out of a working One Wheel right to the left of it and put it in a different One Wheel. It's not going to work. Same with Apple. Like, you could take a screen from a brand new iPhone that you just bought for $1,000 and switch it with another brand new iPhone that you just bought for $1,000, and both those iPhones are effectively broken now. So a lot of these are like unfair right to repair practices for the consumer, so that Apple and John Deere and One Wheel and these companies can just go, hey, just go buy another One Wheel, go buy another phone, go buy another $1 million tractor.
Yeah.
And
I got all that money. I bought this one so it could work. Tesla's doing the same thing. I don't know if you heard about Tesla, but I don't know if they moved past this, but you couldn't take a Tesla to an independent repair shop.
That's still a thing too. The raid definitely worked, Auntie. Raid definitely worked. Twitch should be acting weird lately. I raided the other day and I thought it didn't work either.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
But yeah, Tesla's still kind of like that.
Yeah.
You get
They
your
yeah,
car repaired by an independent repair person, and Tesla finds out, they'll just remotely shut off your car, and you won't be able to go anywhere.
or they'll deactivate all the things that
Mm,
you paid for on it, like the
mm,
fast charging and all the amenities that you thought were amenities, but really you need them for the car to function on a regular basis, kind of thing. Like you couldn't
mhm,
pop the fucking charge tag; they'd block the signal for that. So yeah, Tesla would fuck you. I don't know if you follow. There's this cat named Rich Rebuilds on YouTube, and he bought a Tesla. He bought a couple of salvage Teslas, a couple of flooded out ones,
Yeah, I
and
believe I've seen this video. Yeah.
he rebuilt the Tesla. And Tesla was like, "Nah, bro, it's a legit Tesla, but it's not a legit Tesla, where you don't have access to fast charging or nothing." So he said, "You know what? Fuck you. All right, I'm taking the Tesla and I'm gonna put a V8 in it." And then Tesla tried to come after him for taking their car and putting a V8 in it, and he's like, he got a lawyer and shit, and they were like, nah, he owns it. You guys
Mhm.
deactivated and cut your ties with him. Like, this is his car now. So he basically had the right to do that. I haven't seen a video in his in a while, but
Me
that
either.
was what I left off on.
I think we've seen the same video. I haven't seen a video of his in a while. But yeah, it's crazy stuff. And D Jolly's right. The right to repair combined with the planned obsolescence is just corporate greed. Where
Yeah,
they like, you don't need to go buy a new phone every year unless you break yours. Like, then you might need to go buy one. But you don't need a new phone every year. But there's planned obsolescence when it comes to that. So you pretty much need to go get a new phone every year or maybe every 2 years. If you're a technical person, you might be able to eke a little bit more out of it by putting a custom operating system on your phone and shit. But that's a whole nother level.
yeah, yeah. Like you got the S21.
Yeah, S21 Ultra.
Yeah, I got the 22 Ultra, right? And the only big difference between those two phones is nothing. Right? It's the way it looks. That's it. Everything else is the same. Right?
Yo,
And
easy money.
they release these models every year, and they know eventually it's gonna. There was a scandal going on, bro. A while back, there's a scandal going on about phone companies that would slow the older phones down, so that they would make you want to upgrade. Like, really, your phone works fine, right?
Mm,
But they slow it down somehow.
yeah,
Bastards.
and like honestly, how this kind of ties back into growing and like natural farming and stuff is, in the natural farming space ethos, we never we never want to buy something that we can't use and reuse, or something that's also going to harm us down the line. So we're never going for the piece of equipment that if it doesn't get an update, I can't use it again. We're not going for the,
Yep.
you know, hey, I need a huge pump to water all 3,000 of my plants. I would rather have that be gravity fed if at all possible. That way I don't need to rely on a pump.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
a lot of different things in the natural farming sphere thinks about that, so that, because a lot of these companies are like to try to take away your right to own your own equipment. If we are able to do everything on our own, there it doesn't matter what company has the right to do whatever they want to do, because we're not buying their product to begin with. And the best way to defend yourself against these unscrupulous uh, customer practices is don't buy their products. Don't buy
Yep.
an Apple phone. Don't buy a one-wheel scooter. Don't buy a John Deere tractor. You might have to buy somebody else's tractor from the European Union and have it shipped over here, and that might cost you another $200,000. But at least you'll be able to fix it when you want to fix it, and you won't be
Yep.
stopped.
Yep. Think about how much technology is out there that's just like outdated, but not really outdated. It's still perfectly good, but
My
society
grand,
pushes for the better project or the better product, the newer product.
my grandpa has like, and that's the unfortunate thing with the John Deere thing, is because they used to be a really great company. Like my grandpa, he's pretty up there, and he restores Jeeps, Model T, Fords, all kind of tractors, all that kind of shit. And he's
That's
got
sick.
a really old ass John Deere tractor, still runs to this day, 1942. All right. But unfortunately, they ain't built like that anymore. They're built with
No.
a bunch of all this really great technology. Unfortunately, it's great technology because it makes the tractor run more efficient, makes you able to harvest more things at once, make like they're genuine benefits, but you're locked behind a paywall that you can't fix any of this stuff. And if any of this stuff breaks, you better be, you know, pretty good with computers yourself. And a lot of farmers, that's kind of changing, but a lot of farmers weren't great with technology like that. They were great with mechanical stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I can take apart this engine. I can put this engine back together and make sure it runs just fine and make sure that tractor works. Fuck, no problem. Oh, there's a computer that makes to do it? No, I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's how that started out, you know? They were used to the
Yeah.
mechanical part. They weren't used to the technological part.
No. And GPS,
Mm-hmm.
you know, this light traction thing, this do this with that, and it's an all-in-one vehicle. But hey, if it breaks down, guess what? You got to bring it to us. We're not going to come to you. You got to bring it to us, and there's no other way that you can fix it.
Yeah, a lot,
You know?
and Leo Soul Slackers, right? A lot of corporations are moving towards services versus hardware, and just cutting that completely out of the fact. And well, I watch a guy on YouTube. His name's Louis Rossman. He repairs computers even down to the board level. He'll resolder chips directly on your motherboard and fix graphics cards that are blown up and all that kinds of stuff. And
No shit.
he makes a really good point. All of these services that they're trying to sell you and take away the hardware and take away your actual right to ownership of their product, you don't need their product. They're just really great at marketing it to you. All of these things can be accomplished with things you already have.
Yep.
He gave a, for instance, everybody's on not everybody, a lot of people are on a fitness track, a health track, trying to get more healthy and everything. So guess what? There's 500 million apps that came out on your phone for fitness and tracking your fitness and this, that, the other thing. You can literally go down the store for 50 cents and buy a notebook and a piece of a pencil and do all that shit yourself without having an app that's going to not work in 2 months, charge you $30 a month, do all that stuff for what? To keep track of some shit that you could have just keep track of on a piece of paper? Or you could have opened it up, a notepad in your fucking computer and wrote it down in your computer.
Yeah. It's the convenience. Convenience is what they're selling you.
And harvest your data. And the thing is, it's not even that convenient. I absolutely hate data entry in a phone. Don't fucking make me do data entry on a phone. Give me a keyboard any day.
Yeah, it's a bitch. I'm not gonna lie, I use my phone. But usually for my like data entries, I'm taking pictures of shit.
Well, that's
I'll take
different.
little notes here and there, but most of the time, you know, the phone keeps track of the date the picture was made anyway.
Yeah, that's different. Like if I'm actually writing out data, like lots of data, I'm not using a phone.
Yeah, no. Yeah, like how I'm developing these blueprints for this whole grow system that I got going on, right? There's no way, even though, you know, I got a phone, it's got a stylus and, you know, it's got this feature, it's got that feature. I would never want to sit here and try to do the work that I need to be done, you know, on a computer in my phone. It just,
Yeah.
it's just too much information.
And the phone, I'm grateful that the phone is actually capable of doing some of that work, because that means if I'm not near my computer and I absolutely have to do something, I can. But that's an
Yeah.
emergency shit. I'll go through it for emergency shit. I won't do it just because, like, no.
Yeah, no, that ain't happening. So, getting back into the garden, let me ask you. So I had recently, just yesterday, I chopped down my fucking my frosted cobbler.
Hell yeah.
Right? And good God, I mean, it was a process just taking the whole thing out of the box. But I chopped it down all in one piece. I had to use a sawzall to cut through the trunk of it, right? So as I'm sitting there, I'm trying to figure out a way to like get these mites off and do a whole plant dip because I like to hang my whole plant and let it dry in one piece, right? So I got this big bucket and I dipped it in there a few times and got it off and then I hung it up to dry, right? So I'm on day one of the dry. I'm trying to keep it at around 60% humidity at about, you know, between 60 and 70 degrees. And in here it's a little bit harder. I'm in a garage. So it's lightweight hard to keep, the temperatures down. But what do you do to ready your soil for the next grow?
Literally, just like you have been throughout the grow, like every couple of weeks, top dressing with some amendments. You just top dress with some more amendments, plant a plant right in, keep going.
Now, when I when I chopped it down, I dug into the soil a little bit below, maybe a couple inches, and then chopped it at the base, right? And after I hung the plant up to dry, I took the soil that was around it and I put it on top of it.
Mm.
And I gave the topsoil a nice little watering, kind of like settle it in there. So, in my understanding, right now that I have worms in that box, as that worm population grows, they're going to eat on these roots, right?
Mhm.
And this whole system that I have built in,
And even the
and
plant
they'll
that you put on top of it will eat those roots.
and they'll compost it, right? And
That's good carbohydrates for the microbes, starches.
yeah,
Like, yeah, it's good stuff for it.
yeah. So, in your experience, how long does it take for the worms to decompose something like that, or like a root system?
Honestly, it only takes like a week and a half with no worms.
Oh, what?
Yeah, it doesn't take long as the soil remains moist. It does not take long at all for things to start breaking down.
Oh,
I just harvested too, not but a week or week and a half ago or so, and a lot of those I can walk in there right now, and a lot of those stems I can wiggle and they'll just come right out. And I didn't cut all the way down. I cut, where there's a couple of inches of stem above the soil still, and I can just
mhm.
grab it and pull the stem right out because it that quick. A week and a half, 2 weeks later, it ate all the roots already, the soil and the microbes.
That's a fast ass process. I didn't think it was that fast.
So you literally you can cut your plant another plant right next to it, where the stem's sticking up a little bit. You can plant another plant right there, and by the
Mhm.
time that you harvest the second plant, that entire stem will be gone.
Oh, oh, that's crazy. I didn't think it was that fast. I thought it took a couple months. I never even. So I used to do this like Synganics method where I'd go like 3 grows inside of a bucket, and then I'd end up taking the soil out. I mean, it might have even been two, but come to think about it, I don't even remember seeing the original roots for the first plant that I had in them.
Yeah, because it once the plant's no longer alive, it's no longer protecting its roots itself down there. So the microbes would be like, "Oh, fine, this is dead material. I'm taking it over," and it happens pretty quick.
I don't even think it was that fast.
Especially because they're delicate material to begin with, roots, and they're not made of really strong lignins like a tree, like a wood. It's not a woody substance. Wood takes a long time to break down, and it's done by fungal action. The the more delicate process of the roots, the bacteria can break down really readily.
Oh, well, um, one thing that I'm gonna miss about growing in buckets and shit is when you're done with the grow, you go to take all the soil out and re-amend the soil and take the roots out and whatnot. But you get to see that like nice root ball. I'm gonna miss seeing that.
And every once in a while, before you cut a plant down, you try to pull it out and be like, "Oh, damn, that's a huge ass root ball," and put it back. Because ideally, even in the largest container possible, you're gonna have roots spanning like most of that container. Even growing in a bed, because if you're growing in a bed, you're probably growing 3 or 4 plants in that bed, and all those plants together will like hold the soil together. And another thing that holds the soil together is the fungal bodies, the mycelium, and and even the bacteria helps hold the soil together by the excretions that they create. It's a little bit of a slimy type excretion that helps hold soil particles together.
Oh,
So when you have a super alive soil, it's not uh, super like it's super soft, but it's also super strong. So if you were to dig into it, you'd be able to dig into it very easily, but you would have resistance while you were digging into it. You could feel that resistance, and that resistance is great for nature because we have wind and rain and all that kind of stuff that we need to have that soil be nice and alive to prevent erosion.
yeah.
Of course, physical
So
things will always be able to, dig up and,
I've
excavate
seen some.
natural things. But when
I've
you
seen
have
some.
proper shit, it prevents erosion.
I've seen some pretty wild ways that, like, not only for growing in cannabis, but other plants. I've seen them harvest, or like not harvest, but you ever seen them like pick up and move a tree?
Mm-hmm.
They get these like these shovel things, and they like dig
Huge
into the
crane shovel
ground.
thing, yeah,
I-
it's crazy.
So with a tree growing in the ground, like I don't know if you guys know like a tree's root system, it takes a while and it spreads out, right? It's trying to like root itself into the ground. So yeah, if there's a windy day, it doesn't come and blow it over, right? I always wondered, like, with them scooping that tree out of the ground, and it's not, maybe like 4 feet on each side of the,
Yeah, they're not getting
you
all the
know,
roots.
yeah. I always wondered, like, how bad is that damage in that tree?
It's pretty, semi damaging the tree, 100%. And what they do is they, over time, figured out if they get around that 4 foot diameter, that's enough roots for it to be replanted somewhere and for it to not die, and it's able to survive long enough to put out new ones.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of
That's
a fine line calculation of how much roots can I get up and bring with the tree, because the more that you can bring with the tree, the better its survival.
yeah. Same with cannabis. So, like, when you transplant, do you ever cut your roots?
No. Maybe if I waited entirely too long to transplant, but normally I'm not transplanting too often. I go right from clone state into like solo cups, and from solo cups to final home.
Okay.
So there's not too many stages for me to have to keep transplanting. And usually, right when they have enough roots to go into a solo cup from clone stage, they spend about a week in the solo cup, just enough to where the roots get to the edge of the solo cup, and they go right into their next home. So they just continue to grow. But if you do wait too long and they start spiraling in the cup, and you have a nice like a root ball, it's mostly roots and it doesn't even look like soils there. You might want to
Yeah.
try to massage the roots a little bit, get them loose. Maybe do a couple scores with a knife, um, and that will initiate more root hair growth outward. Because once it starts doing that inward spiral, it's just going to continue to want to do that, and that's why people want you to transplant on time, basically,
Yeah.
because if you do it on time, it'll just continue to grow out instead of you having to try to massage the roots out and score it with a knife, maybe.
I always wondered. I saw Mr. Canuck. He did that a couple times on his grows, where he just, he'd slice the sides of the the roots as he's transplanting into the bucket. And I always wondered like what that was for. So I tried it one time and I legit fucked my plant up. I didn't know what it was for. I figured it was something for the roots, but
Hmm.
I never knew what it was for. When I started growing, I didn't know anything about like how to measure out the nutrients to add in for the fucking, per gallon and whatnot. You read some of these labels and you got to do configurations and all sorts of stuff. And synthetic, now that I look back on it, it was definitely a learning curve because I didn't have that coach. I
Hmm.
don't know if any of y'all had like somebody that like taught you like, hey, look, you kind of add this much per gallon kind of thing, and you convert it to do these measurements and whatnot. I was just kind of like learning this whole thing on my own, right? So for the first like couple of years, I was like winging it. Like, all right, well, I'm gonna add this much because I remember that's how much it was, right? Right? No, maybe not. Maybe a little bit too heavy. I don't know. But yeah, I was like flying by the edge of my seat, and I wasn't on YouTube or that, right? And wasn't looking at YouTube. I didn't want that search history, and I don't know. At the time, that's just
Books, nothing.
yeah. So I downloaded a fucking allegedly. I downloaded a torrent that had all these. It was like a grow collection, somebody's collection of grow books and notes and whatnot, and you know don't ever do that, right? Unless you got like some way of like making sure there's no fucking viruses in there. But I took a risk, and at the time I was doing things with my phone, right? So I downloaded to my phone so my computer was safe. And but yeah, so I opened this thing up and it's got a whole bunch of, and it's got the Grow Encyclopedia in it. There's a whole bunch of notes that whoever had this took and books and whatnot. So I studied a lot of that shit. And now when I still have that file, and when I open it up and I start like reading things in there, it's like a lot of the stuff and practices are outdated.
Hmm.
They're stuff that we don't practice anymore. And you know I don't think there was anything that was aimed at organic growing. I think it was all like synthetic stuff. But yeah, I don't, if I would have known
Right,
about
baby
organics,
gorilla.
man,
And
I
that's the
would have.
crazy thing too, is like I think the big thing is uh, a lot of influence started in Holland, where the Dutch were growing hydroponically in tables. They call them Dutch tables, using synthetic nutrients and just banging out crops. And they were banging out good crops, like run after run after run. So everybody's like, we got to do that. So that that's what everybody got taught. And the funny fact of the matter is like, especially at that time, everybody was taught this hydroponic way and salt nutrient way of growing. At the same time, they were trying to hide it, and it's kind of hard to hide that you're growing hydroponically when you're buying very specific irrigation parts and very specific nutrients.
Yeah.
It's very hard to kind of remain on the down low when you're doing that. And like the easiest way to remain on the down low is by growing organically. You're buying plants to put on the ground that break down to feed your other plants. There's
Organic.
there's no other, like, and everybody buys these things for their garden, whether it be a rose garden, uh, their food vegetable garden. Like, everybody that grows anything used those items, but only a certain subset of people used the salt nutrients and synthetic, uh, you know,
Yeah.
hydroponic setups, especially for uh, cannabis. Like, yes, there are some people growing hydroponically roses and some other things, but that was for
Yeah.
proof of concept. You can't when you want to give somebody a thing of roses, you don't want the net cup with it with the roots on the bottom. Be like, here you go.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not like a really viable way. And I see a lot of these like vertical hydroponic farms, which are kind of cool. And you can produce some leafy vegetables from that, no problem. But a huge problem from a hydroponic standpoint, whether you're doing aquaponics or you're using salt nutrients, no matter what you're doing, it's hard to produce things that have heavy fruits in a hydroponic medium, including cannabis, but tomatoes, watermelons, cucumbers, anything that has weight to it, it is very hard to produce in a hydroponic setup. And especially when you're doing a vertical hydroponic setup, you can't just have 5-pound watermelons hanging on the side of it. They're going to fall off and break.
Yeah.
There's a reason watermelons grow along the ground. Same with pumpkins and other things like that. So I see some advertising for some of these vertical gardens saying it's going to save the world and it's going to bring us out of food insecurity. And I feel like that's a huge misleading statement there, because it could bring some leafy greens to some more people, but that's about it.
Yeah. You're not gonna. Like, I don't even see them growing corn out of there. Like, you're definitely gonna have to have like a farm for that. It's like an in-ground farm. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't. I'm sure you could grow hydroponically some vegetables and some fruits and whatnot, but it's definitely going to be like the smaller things, not like,
Grapes,
yeah,
like
like
things
grape
like
stuff,
that. But
vine
still,
thing.
people want organic grapes for their vineyard, for their
Yeah,
wines. They don't want, like, especially the wine snobs, they don't want hydroponically grown grapes for their wine.
no.
And then they're gonna
And
have to
these,
start adding in fucking lactobacillus and all these other microbes in there so it actually turned back into wine.
yeah, like out here, it's, I'm basically in wine country. We go driving out to, a couple cities over, and we got to drive through wine country. And the biggest boast for these companies is having all their plants outside. So when you drive past, you see all these grapes growing on these vines, and then people look over and they're like, "Oh, look, that's a winery, honey. Let's stop." Right? But if they were grown hydroponically, like, not only they're gonna have to go through like the whole salt regimen, and because there's as far as I know, there's no organic way to grow hydroponically, right? Unless you're doing like aquaponics kind of thing, right? And you
Yeah,
got the
you can do
fish
an
that are
aquaponics
feeding
thing.
it.
There are ways of doing it, but it's even harder to do organically in a hydroponic system, because at the end of the day, some of these plants are just not meant to be grown in water. They're not aquatic plants. There are aquatic plants, lily pads and seaweeds, and they live in water. And you don't need to try to like change the environment to make it to where there's enough oxygen in the water so that this plant that's supposed to live in the soil can actually live in the water. Like, they'll just live in the water.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why,
Yeah.
like, a lot of this
'Cause
a lot of this research is really great research for us trying to colonize other planets. That's
oh
where
yeah,
that's where the research comes in, of this hydroponic growing, and grown with the least amount of water possible, hydroponically, with the most amount of salt nutrients, and having the right combination. All that research is great for trying to grow on a 7-month journey to some other planet that we haven't been to yet.
yeah. It's temporary.
We have Earth and Mother Nature already here. If we just work with that, we'll have much more bountiful harvests for food. Our nutrient density will go back up. People won't need to eat as much food to get the same amount of nutrients, and our food security will go up. Like, I've been studying the regenerative farming for the past 7-10 years, and the answers are out there, but unfortunately people are marketed the other answers, the other solutions.
It's a quick fix, if you got a problem with your plants, add this in, it'll fix it real quick, but at what cost? If I add too much, I'm gonna do some harm to the plant. If I add too little, it's not going to be enough. And now I'm going to say, well, this product fucking sucks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like either way, you're going to say, this product fucking sucks if you you mess it up. And it's like, I don't know, synthetic nutrients are pushed for that convenience thing again.
It is,
right?
And the crazy story I like to tell once in a while is the person that invented synthetic nutrients. He used them in his lab and grew several plants, and they turned out just fine, just like they do right now. But he noticed when he ran his experiment that it killed or inhibited the soil microbiology, and he knew that was bad. And he goes, it works, but I'm not going to use it. We're going to just go back to the old way. So even the guy who invented it never really used it other than inside the lab to see if it would even work.
It's crazy. If you're talking about the same dude that I'm thinking of, he's got a facility that was completely just left abandoned. Right? And I watch a lot of abandoned videos. I like to see abandoned buildings. And, what I'm saying? I don't know, that's just cool. But the point is this: they went and it was this fertilizer company that went under, right? And dude had developed some organic way of growing or some non-organic way of growing, and it got big. Maybe the company went bankrupt or something, or maybe it was this dude and he was like, well, maybe synthetic's not the way, we're gonna go back to organic. Long story short, the place was abandoned and all these synthetic nutrients and shit were left in this building, and it's a big ass glass building. All right, well, it's in the middle of nowhere where there's hella plants and shit. Well, what the plants do? The plants came in and took over this building, and they got into the synthetic nutrients. And now, guess what? They're these giant monsters that nobody's ever seen before. That no one's ever seen a plant this big because it's just been feeding on these synthetic nutrients. And, it looks so fucking unnatural. It's just growing out of control. The whole synthetic thing, it kind of reminds me of the meat. How synthetic meat is becoming a
grown
thing now.
meat.
Yeah, that kind of.
At least that process is still somewhat natural. They are taking bacterias and yeasts mostly that arrange amino acids in a particular way to make it look and taste like meat. So I mean, it technically is still natural. A human pushed and put the ingredients together in the right ways so that it would come out that way, but technically, and that's where we, what's organic and what's inorganic. And that a lot of people have this debate of, oh, you're growing inside using a light, that's not organic. The whole idea of growing natural or organic or whatever you want to call it is that the inputs that you're giving to your soil are organic nature, so that the microbes themselves can eat it and then pass it on to your plant. That's the whole idea behind it. It doesn't mean everything has to be organic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of inorganic compounds, metals that your plant needs to survive. They're not organic compounds. So metal is not an organic compound. No, but your plant still needs it. It still needs boron, still needs copper, still needs... But they're not... those things are technically not organic. They're inorganic compounds. So a huge part of the natural farming, if you want to understand even more about it, is looking up organic chemistry. And I know that sounds super boring, like you're going back to high school and you don't want to learn this shit. But if you want to truly understand what's happening in your soil and in your plant, you need to learn organic chemistry and biochemistry.
No, look, it doesn't naturally, yeah, if you're not into science, that sounds boring as fuck. It does. But if you have seen Green Goblin's YouTube channel, he does some fucking organic chemistry on there. And he makes what the John the
Jadam
come on, the
sulfur,
yeah, the
wetting
Jadam
agent.
sulfur. And if you've seen that, the chemical reactions there are like legit chemical reactions, or the organic reactions are like chemical reactions. The way they heat up and they have a gas that they output, and it's like real chemistry, like legit.
And that's what, like, shout out Trey Strongs. He's the master, chef over there. And being a chef and a cook is nothing more than being the ambassador and shepherd of slowly decomposing a food in a particular way to make it palatable and nutritional. Cooking is nothing more than a little bit of decomposition. Yogurt is nothing more than a little bit of decomposition with a certain bacteria. Like a lot of sauerkraut, kimchi, tofu, all these things are nothing more than a slight decomposition state. Because nearly all the same microbiology that's in the soil is in your gut and in your intestine. And if we feed ourselves different nutritionally dense foods that are semi-decomposed by either cooking or, fermentation, it will give us even more nutrition. It makes our body have to work even less hard to get the nutrition out of the food because it's already semi-decomposed. And the same goes for our plants. And that's why we like to put lots of different organic matter down on our topsoil so that it decomposes, and we're constantly creating a 2-inch layer of topsoil by the things just keep piling up and decomposing, piling up, decomposing. And you never ever have to apply fertilizers anymore. You never had, like, everything just runs in sync now because you're not taking everything out of the soil. You're always putting back in.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for humans. We can't go on a 27-mile run without putting more water in and putting some more carbs in. Like, the runners always eat tons of spaghetti and shit before they go do their marathon and make sure they're well hydrated, because they have to do that. Because if they don't, they would just straight run out of energy and, fall over and just stop running.
Yeah.
And that's as Trey said it really great last night, energy is never created or destroyed. It is only transferred. And that's what the process of decomposition is. It's the transfer of energy from one atom to another.
So, it's crazy that you say that. Like these worms, I got a worm ban, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite things to feed them is cornstarch, right? And they love it.
Mm-hmm.
They love it. Anything having to do with corn, they're fucking giggity. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So what I do is I sprinkle some on the top of the soil. Right now, when I put the worms in this box, the soil was all uneven. It was all like, it had little hills in the soil, and there was, it didn't look like water. right? But over time, over the time that I've had these things, and me adding, this cornstarch to the top, these worms they pop out of the soil and they eat this cornstarch and then they go back in and they dig their tunnels. Well, over time, as I'm watching these worms, all the soil that used to touch the walls doesn't touch the walls anymore. They move the soil away from the top layer, or the top layer of soil away from the wall, right? And now my soil goes from hella lumpy and with all these hills in it to now it's like smoothing out, right?
Hmm.
And that's not me. That's not me. I'm not touching them. The worms are doing this on their own. So they're breaking down all these chunks of soil. At the same time, they're turning the soil and aerating it.
Hmm.
But I asked Goblin, I said, yo, so I've been feeding my worms, these, with leaves and leftover scraps and whatnot, organic things. And I asked him, I go, yo, so what do you feed your worms? And he goes, whatever I feed the plants. I'm like, I thought about that for a while and I was like, So I had what I feed the dry nutrients that I use is Dr. Earth. It's a 3-6-4 blend or something like that. All right, so instead of feeding the plants with it, I've been feeding the worms with it, and the worms will take that and they'll eat it and they'll compost it, right? And then those worm castings are now not just worm castings, now they're gold. They're
Hmm.
gold castings, right? They're full of nutrients, the same nutrients that you're putting in your plants. But now it doesn't take time for the plant to break that nutrient down. Now it's already broken down and it's readily available for the worms. So that's the new adventure that I've been going on. And I just recently threw some cornstarch on the top and the worms turned the whole soil mix over. And I think I'm getting close to time to harvest some castings out of there. But at the same time, I'm going to create a second environment for the worms. So I'm going to take half of the population and I'm going to move it into another worm bin. And I'm going to start a whole another colony of worms. Right. I'm going to keep this process going. Hopefully soon we'll end up having like a
Hmm.
multi-tiered worm stage thing going on.
And it's nice to always have a little bit of worm castings around. Like, just the fact, like, humic, a lot of people may not understand this when it comes to the chlorine and chloramines and stuff in your water. You can get rid of those pretty easily too by just tossing a handful of worm castings in the water that you're going to use.
Oh,
There's a lot of humic acids in worm castings, and the humic acids will rip apart the chloramines and chlorines, and it'll also bring your water to a more neutral pH if it's not already. So literally a
I didn't know
handful of
that.
worm castings can go a long, long way.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I had a worm commit suicide. Poor guy, rest in peace. So I got the worm bin up on top of my dechlorination station, right? So I got open buckets of water that are sitting at the bottom of this cabinet or this shelf. And one of my worms committed suicide, poor guy. He got out of the worm bin and he was exploring a bit. And I come in the next morning and I find him sitting at the bottom of the water bucket. Oh, poor guy, rest in peace. That's all right. You'll still go into the soil. Yeah,
Oh
the
yeah.
whole worm thing is that's been a whole experience, bro. Just learning about the worms and what the worms can do, and seeing firsthand how fast they can work in your soil. I seen them take a whole avocado down to fucking nothing but the shell,
Hmm.
right?
Quit.
Quick, quick, and they loved it. You know those videos that you see on YouTube with the guys that they put the avocado in, the avocado tech, and they pop the avocado up a day later, and there's a whole ball of worms. I got to experience that. That's a whole experience in itself,
You can
right?
do the
Seeing
same thing with like pumpkins, anything that has fats and lipids and stuff. They'll really go crazy for.
it's so crazy to see that though, like just for the first time. You don't see that when you're growing synthetic. I never used worms when I was growing synthetic, right? These worms are just going crazy inside here, just moving all about. And I popped open the lid a couple days ago, and I come see like little baby worms, little itty bitty tiny ones that are just moving around. So I got a new generation of worms in there now,
Oh yeah.
and as far as I know, right, you could take the worms, and they'll keep going as long as you feed them. They'll keep going, and they'll regulate the population inside whatever bin it's in,
If
and
you there's two ways to go about it. If you feed them enough to where you want them to breed constantly, their population will double every 3 months.
oh,
If you feed them enough to live, the population just remains stable. So some will die off, and some will be, come about, but you won't really have more or less than what you have. So you can feed them a bunch, and that will make them breed because they're like, oh, there's tons of food around here. We can have tons more worms.
yeah,
And then you can continue to feed like that, and you'll just continue to get more and more worms, more and more castings. And that's what worm casting companies do, is they just continually do it. But as a home
oh,
grower, once you have enough worms for your grow bed or your whatever you're growing in, and you're feeding them and they're staying alive, you really don't need to feed a ton to where they're always breeding uh, to gain more population.
yeah, you
Because
end up
technically
killing them.
they're always breeding to replace anybody that passes away, but they won't breed to an excess unless they think there's a ton of food around. So that's a way to kind of manage your worm population. Because sometimes you may not want to expand into another bin or make another bin, or you might run out of space and be like, I got 5-10 bins already. You know,
Miss B, kick my ass.
so if you don't want to continue to expand, you can just dial back the feeding a little bit, and they'll just maintain.
I'm still trying to figure out how much to feed them and whatnot. Like this first worm bin that I got growing on, I had some vegetables some canned vegetables that we're just gonna sit around, some carrots. Nobody eats fucking carrots, right? So we took the cabinet or the carrots out of the cabinet, put it in there, mixed it in with some eggshells and some coffee grounds and whatnot. But getting a ratio in to feed them is it's been a hard thing to like kind of hone in on. So, I know very little about worms and how much they eat and how fast they compost and whatnot. So, I just been kind of adding shit in. And I'll like look at piles. Like I'll dig up the pile where I left it at, and if it's gone, then I'll add some more in.
Well, a
But
good way to tell is if you put a pile of food in one day and you wait around 24 to maybe 48 hours and it's completely gone, you need to put more food in.
oh, okay,
So if they're always getting the food gone within 24 hours that you put in there, you need to put more food in if you want them to breed.
oh, okay, okay.
If
So like
they're
with this other worm bin that I got, this new one that I'm building, I got nothing but food in there for them. So they're gonna be fucking multiplying
Mhm.
like rabbits. I
And
might
that's
end up
why
having like
they mix bedding material in with the food. That's why they call it bedding material, because it's not necessarily food. It does break down. Most of the time, it's paper, or leaves, or things like that for bedding material.
yeah. So the bedding material that I put in there is I got like paper, like newspaper that I shredded up, and then some hay, some dried up
Mhm.
hay, some straw. That's
Hell
in
yeah.
there, um, and then a whole bunch of like dried out leaves, cannabis leaves. Um, And then to feed them, I also got this bin. It's got a whole bunch of sawdust in it and a whole bunch of paper products. And in the freezer, I'm keeping some leafy greens in there. And, I got coffee grounds and
Hell
eggshells
yeah.
and whatnot. So that's basically just gonna be a feeding bed, right? I'm gonna put a layer of dirt on top, a layer of soil on top to kind of keep that moisture down in there. But other than that, yeah, that population is gonna flourish. It's gonna be huge. There's gonna be thousands of worms that come out of that.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't even think about that. Oh man, this
And
bee is
which
gonna
is,
kick my ass.
if you're trying to produce lots of castings, you need a decent amount of worms. But
Yeah,
like I said, once you reach your few bins and they convert all that food into castings, and the population explodes, even if you don't feed them again that much, the population will just dwindle back down a little bit to the levels that you are feeding them. And you can use them for bait. They jolly's
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Yep. And the homie's got a fishing hole out at his spot. Hell yeah. He's like, yeah. Every time we come out here, we always got to go stop by the bait shop. I'm like, look, one of these days I'm gonna come out there with worms for you.
And it's $4 or $5 a container of worms and shit. Well, you get 30 worms. At least that's how much they are here. And
Yeah, I don't know
you
how
can
much they
produce them
are.
for less.
Yeah. Oh, matter of fact, no, it's like $8 for a pack of 30.
Dang.
Uh, yeah, that's at like PetSmart or Petco or something like that. One of those pet supply stores. I was like, well, yeah, I'm gonna just get like 10 of these. And I started adding it up and I'm like, no, I'm not.
Mhm.
Let me hit Goblin up, see if he's got a worm guy.
uh Culture, the benefit of the worms with the nutrients is they pre-digest the nutrients, so that when you put the worm castings and possibly some worms as well down on your soil, the nutrients are already broken down, and when it rains or you water in, the nutrients will just travel down the soil and be spread throughout the soil mix. And worms do kind of protect you from certain pests in the soil, like nematodes, bad nematodes. There's beneficial nematodes and non-beneficial nematodes. So they do help with the prevention of the bad nematodes.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. Finding a stable mix of a stable mix of insects to have in your organic grow is that's been something that I've been looking into as well. Uh, Naturally, I don't know what they are. They're these little itty bitty tiny things. Like you can barely see them with your eye, right? And they're just crawling around in the soil. I couldn't tell you what they were. You couldn't get one still
Do
with
they jump?
a jeweler's loop. Nah, nah, they crawl.
Okay, so that
Uh,
those are soil mites.
I see a lot of them in the worm bin. They came with the worms in the worm bin.
100%
Uh,
soil mites.
yeah, but I don't think they're bad. I think they more benefit the plant than anything. I
And
could be
then
wrong. Ah, shoot.
there's springtails. And springtails are little white bugs that crawl around in the soil, and they also jump around. That's why they're called springtails.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
th-
I don't know if they
those are
jump.
good for carbon. They degrade carbon.
Oh,
So if you see those around, that's what those do. But having a good mix is definitely a good idea. And the people are always worried about bringing in soil from outside or bringing their plant outside because of what the plant can get. But if you go out to the forest, if you have an area where you have lots of woods or a forest type area where leaves have been piling up for years and nobody's really touched it, people don't really go out there that much. They might go out to camp once in a while, but they don't really go out there. If you go out there and dig up underneath those leaves and just grab a handful of that soil and bring it back and brew that with a compost tea, you'll add a bunch of locally grown natural microbes and soil life back to your soil, and you'll benefit hugely,
nice. I got a
as well
spot
as
out
making
here.
a JMS. That'll benefit you immensely.
JMS.
Jadam microbial solution.
Oh, okay.
And a Jadam microbial solution is pretty much a compost tea that you don't aerate, and it grows more fungal bodies than it does bacteria. Compost teas normally are bacterial rich. You can steer your compost tea to more fungally dominated as well, but a JMS is just pretty much fungally dominated from the microbes in your local forest. You use potato and sea salt, a little bit of sea salt. You boil the potato so it's soft, and you mush it a little bit. Put it in a pillowcase or a compost tea bag. A couple tablespoons of salt. Put it in the bucket of water, and a handful of that stuff you collected from the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And you're making JMS. You just wait 24 hours and you're good to go. Hey, what up, Jenny the Boss?
You see how easy it is, though? You don't have to go to the store. You don't have to know any chemical reactions. You don't have to have any like chemistry sets or anything like that. It's just all natural. And it's easy for you to make at home.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to cook the potatoes, but it might take a little longer for the JMS to complete. So if you cut them up thin and don't cook them, it will still work, but it might take a little longer for the JMS to complete. Yo, what up, D Squad?
Hey, D Squad, what's going on? Oh, shit.
And D Jolly also brought up a really good point when we were kind of talking about the permaculture and like growing food and farmers and whatnot. If more people, even if it wasn't all their food, just grew a portion of their lawn as food and not as grass, we would have a ton more food security.
Oh, yeah, I got this little 10 by 7 foot dirt patch in my backyard. And I'm gonna start growing some vegetables, and I'm gonna farm out that little tiny plot.
Hell yeah. That's what's up, Honey Nut.
Nice little nice little vegetable garden there.
And even like I said, you're probably not gonna get all your food grown from that little space, but you'll probably still save a couple $100 a month on food.
Oh yeah.
Because now you don't need to buy tomatoes, or you don't need to buy whatever you decide to grow there. You don't need to buy whatever anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody was telling me, my boy, he goes, "Hey, you ever have an old stack of tires?" I'm like, "Yeah. Well, everybody does. Eventually, you get a stack of tires." Right? He goes, "Take that stack of tires, put some soil in it. In just one tire, put some soil in it, put your potatoes in there. And once that potato sprouts out of the ground, put another tire on top of it, put some more soil in there, plant some more potatoes, and then wait till, all your sprouts come up, and then keep doing that for each layer. But when it comes time to harvest, I don't know about you, I don't know if you've ever tried to harvest potatoes, but it can be a pain in the ass, right?" So he goes, "Just take that whole stack of tires and push it over. And you got all your potatoes right there." Bro, that's genius. I hope you wash that tire out first. I always thought that was genius. I might fucking do that in my garden this year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you might be able to, but I think D Jolly, you'd be very surprised. Even in desert areas, there's little oasis like places where there's lots of moisture and a couple of trees and whatnot, and that's what you'd be looking for out in a desert type situation.
Yeah, but Arizona, they got forests and all sorts of stuff. Yo, D Jolly, go on a 2-hour drive, bro. I know some good forests out there in Arizona.
Yeah, if you can head out there just for an afternoon trip and grab some stuff, it might be really worth it for you. Because it's still technically local. I understand you still drove a few hours away, but wind can carry things quite far. And that's still, geographically, it's still local.
Yeah. I believe at one point the desert was water, or it was underwater, right? So, over time, the things that have decomposed and been locked into the soil that nobody's ever touched, like the nutrients that are just locked in there, the organic stuff that's broken down over time, right? Like,
And
I bet you
that's
you
the
dig
crazy
down,
thing. Even
mix some
sand has
topsoil in.
tons. Even the
Oh
sand
yeah,
has tons of stuff in it, and as long as you bring some clays and some organic matter into that sand, you got a soil,
yep.
and the cycle's started.
I've been
And
uh, I've I've been thinking about taking my soil outdoors and converting it into a potting mix, right? There's ways that you can do it. I've seen it done where you take some soil and you add some, you add all your nutrients and whatnot. You basically make an organic mix kind of thing, but you're using your topsoil, your soil that you have in there, and that just you making soil out of that, you got this beautiful active organic soil mix.
oh yeah, 100%. You can make soil from your own shit, out of nature, out of your own topsoil, out of composting your own leaves and grass clippings, especially if you don't spray your grass with chemicals. Um, you get tons and tons of soil that you don't need to purchase. Like, it's insane just from one season of collecting leaves and grass, at least from a, a place that has, trees and more moisture than a desert. Uh, you have tons and tons of soil, more than you know what to do with.
Yeah,
And yes, you can buy a bale of Pro Mix and buy some amendments and buy some worm castings and buy some compost and mix all these together and create a really great designer soil for your indoor grow. 100%. So that's buying everything.
yeah, yeah. You don't have that whole. You don't know exactly what went into it. You don't know if it's all completely organic, if that's what you're shooting for, right? I know out here, me and Miss B, we go on road trips every so often, right? We'll take the kids and we'll drive out. A lot of times we hit Highway 1. And I don't know if y'all know, in California, Highway 1 is that highway that you see in every movie that's
Okay.
filmed out here in California, where it runs up the coast. Like you got ocean on one side and then you got California on the other. And it runs from northern Cali down to southern Cali. Uh, but we'll hop on Highway 1 and we'll go up to like Humboldt County and go drive through the redwoods and whatnot. And a lot of the soil up there has never been touched. It's it's forest. It's legit forest, right? Big ass redwood trees. These things are monsters. Trees that you can take a car and drive through, kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking, D Jolly planted this idea in my head, and he was like, "Yeah, send me some. Can you send me some soil from out there?" And so I started thinking about it. And I was like, "What is it for?" Like, I don't get it. But now that we're talking about it more and more, you know, going out there, next time I go out there to these redwoods, you know what I'm saying? I might come back with a truckload of dirt.
And that's the thing I want to also promote is do not pilfer national parks or
Yeah.
natural things. Like, you don't need a lot. Literally, if you take like a Walmart plastic bag or a plastic grocery bag and you fill up a little portion of it to where you got like a couple decent sized handfuls of it, that's all you need. Because we don't need to go excavate the whole forest of all of its soil and then put it somewhere else. That's how we got in this position in the first place. All we need is a small portion of it so that we can grow the microorganisms that came with it, and to higher numbers and then apply it to our farm.
Yep. Just like the worms, right? With my worms, I didn't buy a lot of worms that I was gonna, have my population right off the bat. I got small amount of worms so that my worms could build up to the population that I wanted.
Mm.
And then it's the same thing with IMO and all that. You gathering your own soil from different places. You don't need a lot. You really don't. Uh, and the more that we leave there, the more it'll grow over time.
The more soil it will create, the better that those
Yeah,
forests will be. And
yeah.
IMO 1 through 4. We can do one of those episodes, D Jolly, but like I wanted to be able to do the collections and stuff and show the collections. But I suppose I could do the episode still and just show pictures for right now. Because as many of you know, I'll be doing a pretty big dental surgery Friday. So it's kind of skewing my plans. Otherwise, I'd go out to the woods and put some IMO boxes out there right now. But I can't guarantee I'll make it back out there to collect them at least in a timely manner.
And you're not too far from Mother Nature, huh?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. See, we got to drive out here. It's a little bit of a drive,
Right, D Squad? Yeah, no, like I'm in a suburban area right now, as much as suburban area as you can call it for right here. But I can drive 10 minutes and I won't see any city lights and see the stars. And
I'm so jealous.
I'm about 150 feet away from a bayou, a freshwater bayou you can go swimming in. I'm about 2 miles away from the Lake Michigan.
That's so sick. Yo, I would have the dopest fucking telescope out there. I like to watch stars. I like to look at the sky and shit. Not a lot of people like to do that anymore. Everybody's so involved in their phones. But me, shit, I disconnect. I'll go out in the middle of nowhere and I'll look up in the sky, man. I could spend, hours just sitting there watching stars. But it is time. I got to get up out of here and get these kids off Miss B's hands.
Hell yeah.
Appreciate you for doing these organic talks, brother.
Hey, no problem.
Teaching me a lot. Not only me, but I know, there's other people out there learning too. So, hell yeah. But I appreciate y'all, man. I got to get up out of here and get these kids. Appreciate y'all for joining us today. Appreciate y'all for sticking around if y'all rated, if you guys were with me when we rated. But hell yeah. Don't forget tonight, yo. Don't forget tonight. I know Goblin's gonna be there. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but
I'll be there.
We got caffeine and conspiracies tonight. Yeah.
You
Tune
see
in
me
to
in the
Crazy's
streets.
channel, y'all. Yeah.
In these Twitch streets.
Hell yeah. Goblin out here representing y'all. All right, y'all. I'll catch you guys. Have a dope day, everybody. Hey, wear those smiles out in the world, man.
Damn right.
Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you, man. Later.